So in the first session, we talked about the simple concepts of trust. But in the second session, we started to talk a little more about how that gets more complicated when you think of it as two individuals earning each other's trust in a work situation. Now we're going to take it to the team level. We're going to go back to the Venn diagram drawings. Each of this represents the competence, benevolence, and reliability that we talked about in the first two sessions. And I have a team of 5 members. Now, each of these team members has their own personal context that they're dealing with at any point in time. They also have relationships with each other. And sometimes then there's a dynamic between 3 of them, as well as the broader environment in which we all operate. So as you can see, what was fairly simple concepts at first, now when multiplied by multiple team members on a team and thinking about the bonds of trust between each of them, as well as the team as a whole, gets exponentially more complicated. So me, as the leader right here, this is me or you as the leader, needs to really think about how am I building those bonds of trust? Am I being intentional about them? How can I strengthen my trust with my team members? This is some of what we talked about in the second session. Additionally, as the supervisor, you or I also need to be looking at the bonds of trust among our team members. So we may have certain team members that have really strong bonds of trust. They've worked together for years, they know each other well, and they get things done really well together with little interaction from you. Whereas others may have less trust, whether that's because they're newer team members or because they simply have never really found a good way of working together and kind of trusting each other on a task. Example we see often here is like a project management responsibility and a more technical responsibility. Whatever industry you're working in, some of the more technical roles. Ideally, these 2 team members are working side by side for a more integrated team, but since they have different styles, different preferences, they may not be finding a way to communicate in a way that earns each other's trust. So what I'd recommend here is that in addition to you being very aware of your own personal levels of trust with each of your team members and the broader context in which you all operate, thinking about how can I coach each of my individual team members to strengthen the bonds of trust. Now, it's unfair to expect. I'm not saying everyone will fully trust each other all the time. So I may not expect this person and this person to really trust each other. But if I can at least strengthen it just a little bit so that they know and value, if competence is important to each of them, they really highly value that and we can strengthen their trust.